it. So if I were to go back to my 12-year-old self, I would say, there's really nothing wrong with you. There's nothing to fix.
So you love that they had to go to Weird Barbie to get the answers.
Kate McKinnon. Oh my God. Well, yeah, and most of us, don't we have to go to our own Weird Barbie in order to get to...
Welcome to the Spark of Splendor podcast, where we celebrate everything creative about you.
We have Mary here. I am so happy to be here with you, Mary. Ever since we started as accountability buddies in our Gita class and having these very intimate conversations and like, oh, that was such a golden nugget. Oh, that was so amazing. And so our conversations have really inspired me on this journey of just being more present, listening, and celebrating what is good and beautiful about the world. And you are one of the most beautiful and good people that I know. And I'm so grateful for you, dear Mary.
Of course, dude, the feeling is so mutual. Thank you. Thank you. I love my time with you, and I learned so much from you. It is such a delight to be in your presence too. So anytime I get to spend with you is time very, very well spent.
Thank you so much. I just feel like it really is a blessing to be in this conversation. And yeah, like right now I'm in your coaching training program with Upbuild. So the Upbuild coaching training, yay. I'll post a link to that as well. And I just love how much the training is encouraging me to listen. And I think one of the things that really comes up for me is like, how do you know when you're supposed to be a coach and when you like turn off the coach?
I don't know if there's really an answer to that. But, you know, it's funny. I think about, I'm really glad you're in the program. I'm in the program. And I'm glad you're enjoying it too. It's such a profound privilege to work with people and to teach them skills like this. And I just keep imagining how far out the ripple effect will go, you know, through someone like you, through your work and all the communities that you're in. Just it makes me feel really grateful that I don't have to do it
all. Well, I think just to that point, like the ambassadors, like you're creating ambassadors. Right. So the mission of this coaching training is to help people experience and to become and to come into their true and best selves.
And we're training people to help others do that. But the way we train them is by putting them through the processes of connecting to your truest and your best self. And really, that's what coaching is. It's helping people connect to who they truly are. And it's about helping them connect to their deepest desires that are really in alignment with who they truly are and not in alignment with the world's expectations for them or their ego. It's about really coming into contact with who you truly are as much as is possible in this lifetime. And so as a coach, it's funny you asked that question about how do you know when to turn that off? Because in some ways, I don't know if I ever really turn it off. I'm not always coaching people, but I'm really, I do think I listen a lot for what's trying to emerge in this conversation or what's trying to emerge in this person. What is the deep yearning that's coming from the truest part of themselves? And even in this conversation about anything. So it's really fun. I don't coach everybody, but I think I do try to listen in that deep way.
I think, thank you so much. And something from, you know, the one-day workshop that was kind of like an intro to coaching, what really blew my mind in that is like, oh, we're trying to become human mirrors and to actually learn to listen and to help other people arrive at their own answers without necessarily needing to give advice. And that was such a difficult thing for me to take at first, because I was like, this is very foreign. I don't know how to, but I know the people that are really good at like listening, and the people I probably love the most in the world and admire very much have these very qualities of knowing how to listen with such depth and capacity to just like really meet you where you're at.
Yeah, I love the way you just said that. To meet you where you're at without an agenda to change you, without trying to give advice, but make it sound like I'm not giving advice. One of the ways I think about listening to people is holding my arms really, really wide and being willing to capture and hold whatever it is, and knowing that it's actually not my responsibility to shift or change people. I have more of a spiritual worldview and a life that's informed by spirituality. So one of the ways I think about it, it's actually God's job to change, and it's God's job to give them advice. I'm just an instrument to help this person really see who they truly are, and God does the hard work.
I love that. I love that. So beautiful. Yeah, you're an instrument of, and just like recognizing that you can kind of let go. You don't have to be responsible and manage everything. There's a freedom in knowing. So you're saying a little bit about your spiritual path, and anything you can share to just shed some light as to like how that's shaped your perspective.
Yeah. Well, I grew up in a Irish German Catholic household, and I'm one of 6 children. So there was a lot going on, and I'm one of the 2 youngest.
Wow.
By the time my parents got around to me, they weren't sending me to Catholic school. They sent all my 4 older brothers and sisters to Catholic school, and very much going to church all the time, very regularly. But they were exhausted by the time they had child number 5 and 6, and so formal religion wasn't really and formal spirituality wasn't really a part of my life until I was in my mid-teens, and I went to church with some friends, and I really loved the conversations that came through the sermons, and I loved the conversations over breakfast afterwards. And I was really curious about God, but I had a feeling that the way God was portrayed was maybe way more rigid or strict or even mean than I thought about God. So in my 30s, I actually was invited to a United Methodist church with a friend, and I found a spiritual home there. The environment was very much about questioning and thinking about God, and not so much needing to have the right answers, but always staying in conversation and relationship with God. And that really, really worked with me. And I have a meditation practice that is grounded in Buddhism. And I also study with the folks at Upbuild, with Rasanath and Hari Prasad, in our studies of the Bhagavad Gita. And that's it's so exciting because I love seeing the consistency in spiritual wisdom traditions and wisdom writing, but I also love learning the personality of God through different lenses. Like the Bhagavad Gita really talks about Krishna, about God, in a different way than, let's say, the New Testament talks about Jesus.
Yeah, and just last night, how we were hearing how God is our dear friend.
Yeah, not, the authority figure in the sky who's going to judge everything that you do. and that, yeah, God is our partner and our friend. And that's one thing that has really stuck with me as an adult, is the importance of cultivating that relationship. And I'm not perfect at it. I'm all over the place sometimes, like everybody else. I go through times of really being devoted to my practice, and then other times where it's like, okay, if I can find 5 minutes, I'm lucky in the midst of a busy day. But one of the things I love doing is going on retreat for a couple of days by myself and really devoting that time to relationship with God.
So you like set up times to go on retreat. What kind of retreats? Like by yourself or with others, or?
It's usually by myself. There's a retreat center near where I live, and they have a full range of accommodations. Some of them are just little huts where you have to walk out to the outhouse, and there's no running water and it's off grid. So sometimes you go there, especially if I'm just wanting to rest and not have a lot of busyness. And then there are the other end of the accommodations are, it's a beautiful electric lights, fireplace, stove, refrigerator, full running water and shower. And so I will sometimes do that during the winter time, where I have the creature comforts, but I still have that quiet. And it's on about 300 acres of land. So it's very rare that you run into other people. So it's very, it lends itself to solitude. And
the way you're sharing these very inner focus, sometimes you've got the luxury, but sometimes the very bare bones, and just having the time to be with yourself and to really reflect and go within.
Yeah. I one of my teachers instructed me, she made a rule. She's like, when you go on retreat like this, your only job for the first 24 hours is to sleep. Don't journal, don't pray, don't think. If you can, just go there and sleep and get really, really well rested for the first day. And then after that, you're usually restored and you've recovered from your day-to-day busyness and all of that. And then you can really focus on the prayer and the meditation and relationship with God. I don't know if that works for everybody, but it really works for me.
So it's like this nourishing yourself. And so there's like the nourishment that comes in the retreats. And then there's also like, how do you nourish on a day-to-day basis? Some of the things you do to nourish throughout your day. You mentioned meditation.
I really love meditation. And I was pretty haphazard in my meditation practice until about October last year, when I became really serious about it. And I study something called Turgar meditation. And it's a form of Buddhist meditation, which is really all about becoming friends with your mind. And when we become friends with our minds and, have the capacity to hold space in ourselves for ourselves and our own mind, it really strengthens the muscle to hold space for other people. So I really love meditating. It's not necessarily easy, but the benefit is great. The benefit is so great to just be able to be at peace with what is more and more in my day-to-day life. I love to get outside. No matter what the weather, even when it's really cold, I'll just bundle up and get outside and go for a walk or a run. That's very nourishing. Love spending time with dear friends. That's hugely nourishing. Really simple things like taking a walk in the woods or cooking a nice soup for dinner. Currently, my husband Greg and I are watching the Harry Potter movies.
Oh, nice.
And I'm finding that really nourishing. It's
like kind of going from the beginning and like taking it all the way.
Yeah. And I think the last thing I love is Well, I love so many things. I really feel nourished by my work.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful. I mean, what a blessing.
It's a great fortune to have work that I think contributes a lot of good to the world. And then I also benefit by having these deep connections with people and having the great fortune to see people for who they are and to help them become more of who they want to be. Yeah.
Wow, there's so much there, so much about just the things you appreciate. And I also just loved like what nourishes you, hearing about, the walks and cooking and, nourished by your work. And then you mentioned the Turgar meditation. I wonder if you could share like maybe a breakthrough moment for you in that training, something you could share with all of us.
Well, I started my training with Turgar in 2019, and like I said, I've been a little haphazard, but I would go through periods of time where I would meditate and then I would drop it. Things would get busy. But this was in the very first couple of weeks of my training, and the instruction was to just sit for about 5 minutes a day. Not too much. The instruction is actually short times, many times. Don't try to meditate for 30 minutes as a beginner. Just do it for short times. And I was doing my evening meditation for 5 minutes, and I was just sitting there. And all of a sudden, I realized just how mean I was with my inner voice. It was a huge breakthrough that I saw how, I'm not doing this well enough, or I really should devote more time to it, or my
Judgment.
complete that inner critic part of my ego was just awful. But the beauty of that moment was I recognized it, like, oh my gosh, I am so mean to myself. And I think I even said that out loud. And it was just a beautiful breakthrough moment where I realized, whoa, this is just not the kind of person I want to be. And I had already done, I was a coach. I've done tons of work on myself, and I always knew I had an inner critic, but it was sort of external to me. And I dealt with it that way. But to hear it and to have the level of awareness I had in that moment, it was like over the next couple of years, with more practice and meditation, I was really able to quiet that voice deeply. So that it's not that it's never there, but it's not ever present the way it was earlier in my life. Isn't that awesome?
That is amazing. So it's like you tune down the inner critic voice. So then it makes me think about like tuning up the intuition voice, and how do you identify between those voices and some other just guidance around maybe a moment in your life where you really took it was like a hard thing, but you realized it was your intuition speaking.
Oh, yeah. It was actually when I found coaching. This was way back in the 1990s. And I had this, I was working at a job that I liked, but it was missing something for me. I really felt like there was more I could contribute to the people in my life and through work. And I was okay at what I did, but I just had this urge to do something else. And it was when I found coaching, and I actually talked to Jenna Kellogg, who's now one of the faculty at Upbuild. I talked to her, and within we had a 15-20 minute conversation, and I knew without a doubt, my intuition was just telling me, this is the thing that I've been looking for. I didn't know it at the time that I would become a coach in practice and have a 20+ year career as a coach. But at that moment, I knew this is something that is almost like the missing piece for me. And so many people told me, you have a very secure job. You shouldn't pursue this coaching thing. Don't do it. Don't do it. Security is more important, and security is important. So I was able to stay in the job I had for a while until I was really sure I needed to make the leap full-time as a coach. And that's what I did. But my intuition, it was so strong. I couldn't say no to it. I tried.
It was like, tell me more about that strong intuition and getting to the missing piece.
So for me, my intuition comes on several different channels. And sometimes it will come in, I will hear a word, and it comes from somewhere, I don't know, but I'll hear a word or I'll hear a sound. And that tells me, I need to pay attention to that. But when the period of time I'm talking about with coaching, it actually, and even since then, my intuition often comes in strong body sensations where you get that strong feeling in your gut, or the feeling of butterflies in your stomach, or a fluttering in your heart. For me, my body is it gives me signals of, oh, whoa, this is resonant, or this is true. Pay attention to it. And that's how it was. I remember I was sitting at my desk. I was on the phone with Jenna, and I was talking, and I remember the feeling I had of yes, 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 this is it. And it was as if my whole body felt strong. So that's my intuition.
Was there an opening in your life at the time? Were you searching? Had you been asking? Like you said, you had the sense that there was something more you wanted to give. There was like a sense that you had something more than what you were bringing in your job that was very secure. And
I was praying a lot. And that was important, praying for that opening. I also was experiencing just a level of dissatisfaction at my work that was unusual for me, because I generally have fun with work and I like working. And there was just something shifting in my experience of work that told me that this isn't enough. And I love the word you're using, like, is there something opening? Because sometimes things really are opening up right in front of us, and it just takes a little bit of time for all the pieces to fall together. And I think that was an opening. I don't remember the details of the moment, but no, that's not quite true. I remember the detail of the moment when I was talking to Jenna, and I'm like, okay, this is it. But I don't remember all of the circumstances around that. But it was a lot of dissatisfaction with my job, and just praying that I could find something that was really more meaningful, but more of service to people.
Thank you. Wow. That was beautiful. So it's like, because when I think about that, it's like, oh, sometimes things in life are difficult. Maybe there's a struggle, but if I keep sitting with it and like being prayerful and being open to what's possible, something is emerging in front of me.
Yeah.
And I was listening to something about how we're such creatures of habit that we seek, kind of the same experiences, even if they're uncomfortable and not great for us, like just bad for our bodies, but we're just like, oh, we're used to this. This is normal. So, it was actually Joe Dispenza was talking about it. And I was just like, okay, it's true. Our bodies like are so used to a certain type of programming. So it's like the breaking out of the known and into the unknown is like something that I really get in my conversation with you, that this like exploration and discovery. And I think you do that on a macro level and on like a micro level in the conversations. Like when I see the coaching, just the openness to what can emerge in the moment, right? It's not about knowing or having an answer, but being this adventurer that you are. And I love that.
Oh, thank you. Wow, thank you. I love that word. And it is like being an adventurer and being unafraid of what's unfolding. And I've spent plenty of time in my life being afraid. I think in those moments of opening, there really is something that I experience as life or God really calling me forward and saying, you need to let go of this old situation and step toward your heart, step forward into what you know is good for you. This is me talking to myself, step into what's good for you. You have to let go of all these habits and things that you think you need to cling to be safe and secure. I've been really fortunate in that I've been single most of my life. And so I had a lot of flexibility to step into those open spaces and step toward my heart and my calling more and more. I didn't have a whole lot holding me back from making those changes that I felt life and God were leading me to.
Yeah, that's amazing. Like living in Hawaii and having, the adventures of that, and now moving back to the East Coast and amazing. Okay, I have a few questions about, I have so many different questions, but I'm going to focus. I'm going to try to focus. So thank you for bearing with me here.
Problem.
I think the theme that I'd like to get at is like, it could have been during COVID, or it could have been some other challenge in your life, but something that you were able to overcome that led to like a tremendous breakthrough. If there's one in particular that comes to mind, like, I don't know if it was with COVID or just in the transitions of it could have been, just like some of the struggles of having to deal with that, but anything that you feel, helped you change your perspective from maybe 10 years ago till today.
Oh, wow. Well, yeah, I have to say that one of the things I'm really proud of is getting over my fear of dogs.
Wow.
I used to be really, really afraid of dogs. And I grew up in a rural environment. We had a farm, we had ducks, the people down the road had cows, and we had horses. So, and we also had dogs, but there was one dog that he didn't attack me, but he was really aggressive, and I was a little kid.
Oh, wow.
So this set the tone for me. That set the tone for me. And I just became really frightened of dogs after that. And even as an adult, I would meet people with dogs and think, what is the attraction here? Why do people like dogs so much? But then I moved to Hawaii, and I lived on a farm, and there were 3 working dogs on that farm. There was a German Shepherd, a Chow, and a Boxer. So these were really big, sturdy working dogs that would never be afraid to protect you or be in a fight. So I was very intimidated by these dogs. But every morning I would wake up, and I do like coffee, so they would hear me grinding the coffee beans, and the dogs would come to the door and they would sit near me while I drank my cup of coffee. And over time, they would sit closer and closer, and they would come and, let me pet them. And it was over time that I began to see that something from my past was actually running my day-to-day life. And it was a fear from when I was a little kid that was having me not comfortable with dogs at all in my adult life, even gentle dogs. so it's kind of a strange answer. If anybody ever said, what's your proudest accomplishment?
Oh, I think that's amazing.
But this is one of my most proud accomplishments, because it's an example of how I was able to overcome something and change my mind and my experience deeply by simply staying present every day and not letting my fear take over.
That's so beautiful. Go ahead.
I love dogs.
Oh yeah, I just love that. And it reminds me of what you said earlier about, just the inner critic, kind of getting to know it. And it's same with like the fear, getting to see it, just recognizing it. And it's like, if you don't notice it, it's kind of driving you.
Yes.
And once you're like, oh, wait, and somehow being in this farm, in this environment, it made you kind of sit and investigate what's up with me and my relationship with dogs. And then a breakthrough of like, no more. I don't want that old story to drive how I'm relating to this.
Yeah.
And that applies to so many things in life, right? The recognition of the fear.
It really does. It really does. It applies to everything in life, that sometimes, when we're afraid, it's a really old narrative, or it might even be someone else's narrative. And so it helped me understand that a lot of what happens in my mind is conditioning. It happened a really, really long time ago. And that just because something happened a long time ago doesn't mean that I have to keep thinking the same things and doing the same things. That we really can change our minds, but we have to face and really recognize what it is that we're thinking and experiencing and believing.
Right. So like reprogramming our minds, which starts with seeing that there's an old program running.
Yeah. Yeah. Like the inner critic, like the thing with the dogs. You asked earlier about COVID, and one of the things that happened for me during COVID is I lost my oldest sister. She passed away. And then during 2021, I had 4 friends die, one of whom was my best friend of the last 20 some years. And, I was not a person who really thought about death very much, but I started doing a practice when my sister died. It's called POA, and it's a Buddhist practice to help people who are dying or who've already died pass from this life to what's next. And it was a practice that really helped me shift my own relationship to death and dying, to where I used to be kind of afraid of death, and I didn't want to be around people who were sick because I didn't want to confront death in them, much less in myself. But this practice of coming to my meditation cushion every day and praying for these people helped me understand that we don't really die.
Yeah, the soul is eternal and the body dies. But
So
that the body dies.
Yeah, it's the body, and it's not the soul, it's not the essence of the person. So that's something that really shifted for me during COVID. So a lot of that time we all had to figure out what to do with our lives, I was doing a great deal of confronting death and praying and grieving, but also that the pain of that turned into great fruit in my life, just in terms of more peace and equanimity and just being more okay with this human condition.
Yeah, like I think about the flip side of what's happening, or just even being younger. I remember also feeling like this invincible kind of like, I want to be invincible. I am invincible. death is for old people. That's not happening. Like, it was just like this very distant, and then it's like, how arrogant to think that death is this. It's like so many young people are dying, unfortunately. So many children are dying. And it's just like, to think that, yeah, like, oh, I'm just invincible from this. I mean, yeah, my essence is not going to be, I won't die. The essence of me won't die with this body, but to just have that kind of space to accept, and I've also heard lately, it's like, you'll hear about people who are doing all this work to like stay young forever. And they're like taking like 150 vitamins in a day. Like, I'm not kidding. There's some guy who's doing this experiment and he's trying to live as long as possible. So I'm like, that's not the real you. Wait, it cut off. What?
I said, go have some fun. Wow. Yeah, it's not the real you. And I love this conversation. I just love this conversation because on one hand, it's not to minimize the real suffering that we all go through. And I think the suffering that actually leads to us being more mature and really facing things like death or illness or whatever, there's real suffering in that. And then it's also helpful to be able to hold all of that more lightly and not have it be this burden, but more like a mystery that we're all living. And none of us, we don't really know. I remember when my friend Elizabeth was pretty close to dying. She was very spiritually engaged, and she was in the process. And there was a day where she said to me, I really am, I know that I will survive death, and that when I leave this body, I'm actually going to be on my next great adventure. And I'm really excited about that. And then she said, Mary, this is going to be so much easier for me than it is for you.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's one of those situations where facing that difficulty and facing the suffering, there's something that was new and life-giving that really came out of it, that was born from it.
Right, like breaking through a threshold.
Yeah, exactly.
Just loving this conversation as well. I think I may have asked you this question before, but I think it's nice to think about. But if you were to go back to your 12-year-old self and give some advice, what would you tell her?
There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. Yeah. And I don't know if this is because I grew up as a good daughter of the patriarchy and Catholicism, but there's a lot of fixing going on.
Right.
And I actually have conversations with a lot of women, and we talk about the conditioning that we all grow up in that is not necessarily a reflection of our true self. And so there's at least my experience of being a 12-year-old, and I think this was true of a lot of other women, where it's like you're either too much this or too little that. And trying to find that place where you're a good girl and okay.
Spiced and everything. Nice.
Yeah. And this reminds me of America Ferrera's monologue in the movie Barbie. That's the essence of it. So if I were to go back to my 12-year-old self, I would say, there's really nothing wrong with you. There's nothing to fix.
So you love that they had to go to Weird Barbie to get the answers.
Kate McKinnon. Oh my God. Well, yeah, and most of us, don't we have to go to our own weird Barbie in order to get to
I love that. We got to go to our own weird Barbie, like the parts of us that are broken, that we're kind of rejecting, that we're like, I don't like that part of me. I'll just stick it in the closet. And then it starts to like say, no, I'm here. And the guests are all over. And it's like, no, wait.
I'm coming out whether you open the door or not. Yeah, isn't that the truth of it too? We have to, actually embrace and love our own weird Barbie inside ourselves. I think, and that is the message, I think, at the essence to the 12-year-old is like, yeah, you're unique, you're weird, you're strange, sometimes you're a lot of different things, and there's nothing wrong with that. I wouldn't mind playing weird Barbie with you. Or I'm kind of doing it right now.
Okay, let's do it. What should we do?
What would mine do? I'm so happy. And I have a lot of energy, and I need to keep moving because I don't want to stay still. My body doesn't like sitting in front of my desk all day. And my weird Barbie would also be like, I can feel your energy, Barstu. I can feel your energy in my hands.
I feel it too. And if you go like this, you'll feel even more energy.
Okay, now let your weird Barbie take over.
Just sit here and feel the energy between your hands. It's pretty far out that we're alive in these bodies and we have energy just kind of swirling.
It's so wild.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Let's try to ground the energy and we can bring it into our heart and take a deep breath together. Thank you for taking me to Weird Barbie. That was really fun and unexpected. I like that. I mean, I remember playing Barbie as a kid, but it was usually like dressing them up and then they'd have a conversation. I remember once my sister came and she came into the room. She's like, what are you guys talking about? Like me and the Barbies, like the Barbie like, what are you doing? As if there's a right way to talk Barbie. As if judging me for my Barbie talk. No.
Dolls will talk about what dolls talk about. It just comes through us.
Yeah. I guess it's like the Ouija board or all of that. So about the creative process, because that's something I really do want to talk about, and like what is exciting to you. Yeah, what are 3 things that you're just like, I'm very excited about these things coming up?
I'm actually excited about winter. Winter in the northern hemisphere is an opportunity to go out and just play in the snow, get really cold, and then go cross-country skiing or snowshoeing. So I'm actually excited about winter. I've been living in Hawaii for a long time. Well, lived in Hawaii for 14 years, and I didn't see a lot of winters. So that's something that's coming up that I'm really excited about. I am newly married. Like, a month.
Yeah.
And so my husband and I are,
Congratulations.
yeah, thank you.
Yay.
Thank you. We're trying to figure out a really nice, in contrast to the snow, we're trying to figure out a beautiful, warm place to go in the wintertime where I can get in the ocean and swim and relax. I know that taking time, for me, taking time off, whether it's going out and having physical activity or going and taking a couple of days off and just unplugging, that's so fantastic for my own creative process. I need to unplug and just let my brain and my body relax, and then I can come back to projects with a lot of excitement. What's another thing I'm excited about? Oh, this is fun. I have my 15th niece or nephew or great niece or nephew being born in a couple of months. And yeah, it's always really exciting to see all of the love and the unity that comes into our family when a new baby is born. So it's not necessarily something I'm creating, but I'm really excited for my niece and her partner. So
it's like your niece is having a baby.
my niece is having a baby. Yeah. And this
So-
is her second kid.
Aww.
It's pretty exciting.
Where does she live?
She lives in Stamford, Connecticut.
Nice.
It's really nearby, and I'll be able to see this this sweet baby.
Oh. Yeah, maybe you could just talk about curiosity and creativity, because I know that's something that you really value. And so just to hear your thoughts on curiosity and creativity.
I think our natural state is to be curious. And, you know, as time goes on and we become older and more conditioned, I think especially with the people that I work with, we get really married to the notion that we should know. And it's so much more interesting to me to think about the things that I don't know. And to explore in the area of what is already not known. And what a quote that I've been working with this year is it really inspires me, and I thought about it. It stopped me when I first read it, and it's from a book about Buddhism, about Buddhist koans, and it's called "Bring Me the Rhinoceros." The quote is they're talking about the ancient teachers in this particular quote. And he says, the old teachers thought that not to know is to step into life without repeating yourself. And I thought that was such a beautiful idea, to step into life without repeating yourself. You mentioned Joe Dispenza earlier, and one of my favorite books is called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And I think this is exactly what this quote is talking about. How can I do something or think something that's actually fresh and different, instead of doing the same old thing because it's comfortable and known? It doesn't mean that that's bad to engage in what's comfortable and known. But what if you bust out of that and expand your range a little bit as a human being? What else could be possible for you? What would have you walking through life without repeating yourself?
Right. Like, so eliminating the sense of I have to know the answer again. Once again, it's coming into like the uncomfortable space of the unknown. But the quote again was the old teachers thought that
not to know is to step into life without repeating yourself.
I love that. So it's giving you both how to do it and what it is, right? It's saying just don't repeat yourself.
Yeah, and it's not so bad. It's not that it's bad to repeat yourself. And if we're truly living in the present moment, and experiencing the present moment as it presents itself, there are a lot of choices. And I know for myself, I often will choose over and over again the things that I'm comfortable with and the things that I'm familiar with. And so I often think about myself standing on a threshold, to use your word earlier, like a threshold of what would be new and different here. So I've started exercising again. And I have in the past been, I love vigorous exercise. I really like exercising my body in a way where I sweat and I just charge a lot of energy and I just feel really good. But I'm a little older now, and I'm now experimenting with what does it mean to have a vigorous practice of exercise without pushing my body to the limit.
Right, like finding balance.
Yeah, it's finding balance, and it's also finding a fresh way to do it every time.
Right, and entering a new area that you didn't know instead of trying to repeat what you already did before.
Yeah,
I love that.
I'm not the same person. I'm different now. Right?
Yeah, you are. Yeah, and it's like constantly your body needs something different. It doesn't always need exactly the same thing that it needed then. But I'm actually excited just hearing you talk about all the winter sports and the work. It's like, let's do this. Let's go for a run in Central Park. No, I don't run. I actually don't. I'm not a runner. But I don't think I will become one. I don't know if you're a runner.
I'm a jogger now.
You're a jogger. Okay.
I'm a jogger, not a runner. Well, I like to apply this to relationships too, because we can get into patterns with people and relationships. And what is it to step into a fresh moment with someone and maybe you're having the same old reaction or the same old judgment or whatever it is. And what is it to just step into that moment fresh and stay really curious about what else could happen than just the same old, same old.
I just want to say, Mary, I am so grateful for you. Thank you so much for just sharing your heart in so many beautiful ways, sharing your presence and your energy and your thoughtfulness, bringing your breath of fresh air and lightness and sweetness that you bring. I really am just very grateful to have you as a mentor and coach and friend in my life. And I'm just so happy that we get to share in conversation and that other people get to also be a part of this conversation. And I have a few rapid fire questions, if it's okay.
Okay.
I'm still experimenting. I don't know what I'm doing here.
I love it.
Making it up. Okay. What's on your nightstand?
I have a little clock with a thermometer on it because I live in an old house. A book called The Doors of Perception, and I have my Apple Watch charger.
Nice. I love it. What is the book or books you've given the most as a gift and why?
Oh my gosh, this book, The Great Work of Your Life by Stephen Cope. Oh. He's affiliated with Kripalu Institute, and I think it's Kripalu Institute or Kripalu Yoga and Health Center in Western Mass. And he wrote this book with the story of Arjuna and Krishna at the heart of the book, but it's all about how to help human beings become who they are, and thinking about the great work of your life. And he talks about very famous people who sort of metamorphs.
Metamorphosized?
Yes, metamorphosized, transformed.
Yeah.
From different, a career that they may have taken on earlier in their lives, and they just completely change direction later in their lives. So he talks about famous people who do that, but he also talks about just regular old people who've gone through similar transformations where something happened in their life and they had to shift paths, and it really brought them more into who they are truly. So that's my favorite book. I give it away all the time.
Oh, I love it. In the last 5 years, what new belief or habit or behavior has most improved your life?
Intermittent fasting.
Oh, wow.
Well, and I also did a ketogenic diet for quite a while, but intermittent fasting has just helped me connect to my own energy. It changed my life.
Amazing. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it changed everything about how I felt. And I'm not saying that that's right for everyone, but it really helped me.
And if you had, this is the last one, if you had the world's attention just for a minute or less, what would you say to the world?
It's really important that you love yourself. Take really good care of yourself.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you for being so wonderful and real and beautiful and shining your light and wisdom here today on the spark of splendor. You are a spark of splendor and a glorious creation of divinity, and yeah, an eternal spark of splendor. So I am so grateful for you, for your presence and your energy. Thank you so much for sharing your heart. And I'm just gonna stop the recording here and we'll say goodbye. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure being with you as always. A delight.
Thank you so much.